Okay, everybody, hello. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that we are privileged to meet on the Stalo unceded traditional territory of Chilliwack, Palallt, and Samath. And with this statement, we recognize the Stalo people's unique relationship to the land on which the Chilliwack School District does our business, and that we commit to ongoing meaningful reconciliation. The board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation and gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Trustee Westerby, seconded by Trustee Bondar. Any errors, omissions in the agenda? Trustee Moss.
Thank you. So I need a clarification. I'll call this a point of order. So a clarification of process. I submitted a trustee report, which was intercepted by our executive council, and it was edited. The decision of whether or not a motion is accepted is up to the entire board to decide, not a minority or the executive. The board decides what is and is its will concerning motions. The rationale removed was for the rationales removed was for context, which was courtesy of my colleagues. And I would just like a clarification on trustee reports, if they are up for censorship or being edited, as it's the only place where we can actually have that we speak to issues that are important to us. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. So the trustee reports are part of the agenda package. The agenda package is co-constructed by the chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, superintendent, and executive assistant. There have been multiple times where a trustee puts something in their trustee report that for whatever reason we don't feel belongs on a public agenda, and that trustee is contacted and notified of the reasons that that's been done. So you were notified of the reasons why that was done. And so that is what's happened.
Chair, further to that, how are we to know whether or not our trustee reports are going to be edited? This is the only place that a trustee has to speak to something other than what's on the agenda. And now I find that we are being edited, and that doesn't work for me. I've actually brought the 3 notices of motions.
You're not going to be doing that, Trustee Moss. So this is out of order at this time. This is about the
Cut me off again, did you?
Yes, I did.
Awesome.
So if you have something to distribute to trustees later on, you can do that. We're not doing this right now. Are there any other errors or omissions in the agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? Opposed? Thank you. That is passed. Motion carries. Moving on to reading and approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Trustee Swanky, seconded by Trustee Bondar. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as circulated? Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to information items. So the first information item is Budget Advisory Committee report. Trustee Swanky.
Thank you, Chair. The committee met on Thursday, February 8th. Those minutes are before you. I will draw attention to the committee meeting attendance, both to appreciate those that did attend and to note that we don't have the full representation we would hope to, as outlined in Policy 162. As chair, I want to note that I will be working with staff to connect with district partners and encourage reps to attend future meetings this fiscal year. With that said, the board may wish to consider renewing their invitation for members of the public to apply both to the budget and audit committees where there are currently seats not filled. So just a consideration for the board's awareness, my capacity as chair of the committee. Putting that piece aside, I do want to highlight one reflection that isn't articulated in the minutes. I wanted to acknowledge the contributions of committee member Gail Point, who passed away in November of last year. Gail was a Squeala elder, education coordinator for the Squeala Nation, and a longstanding member of the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee. That work also placed her at the budget committee table, where her contributions made a positive impact on students throughout the district. At the last board meeting, her passing was not properly acknowledged, and she was noted as absent from the committee meeting. On behalf of the board, I do want to apologize for any hurt this caused her, her family, the Squeala Nation, and to acknowledge that mistake was made. So I'll leave it there. If there's any thoughts or reflections from other members, they're welcome, but otherwise the minutes are before you.
Thank you, Trustee Swanky, and thank you for that important acknowledgement of Gail's work and for the board. Okay, we're moving on to Budget Advisory Committee report, quarterly financial report. That would be, is that Assistant Secretary Treasurer? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we presented the quarterly report at the Budget Advisory Committee last Thursday. Kevin Josephson, our Manager of Financial Reporting and Analytics, went through it in detail. There's a report, a written report attached to the statements that you see there, which gives explanation for variances. The reason we report on this is to give budget oversight for the board and to ensure that management is following what we set out to do in our preliminary and now our amended budget. So I won't go into the details here, but just to say we're tracking a little bit ahead of budget overall, and we'll continue monitoring it into the spring. And as I mentioned as a side note into the budget committee, we'll start revising this report into more of a projections type of report to show the board where we're anticipating ending the year, because I think that's of interest to this board. So watch for that. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I know some trustees, this is only maybe their second time ever going through this part of the budget reporting. So I know it took me a few years to get this totally settled. So sometimes we're like, we've overspent, but it's just because of the way that the way that schools spend their money. Like they spend a whole bunch at the beginning of the year and then none, and it all balances out. So you said you were a little bit ahead. Did you mean we've spent a little bit more for that reason?
No, my apologies. So we're tracking. If we were to end the year right at the end of December, we would be in a better position that we had. Yeah, sorry. So yes, my apologies. And like I said, the purpose of doing this analysis is to give the board assurance that we're on track, or giving you highlights if we anticipate something derailing our budget.
Thank you. Any other questions, trustees? Seeing none, moving on to the trustee written reports are in the package. 2.4 is BCSTA report. Trustee Reed.
Yes, thank you very much. So as previously noted, we do need to give the chair feedback for the advocacy survey. So I did want to highlight that again, just in the public meeting, as well as for all trustees. If you have feedback about the AGM, to provide it to our chair. Provincial Council is February 24th. It is virtually. The agenda is on the portal, so you can take a look at some of the items that are being reviewed. There is going to be a presentation from CSF, and there's some action and discussion items there as well. Registration for the AGM this year opens February 28th. Extraordinary AGM motions are past due. Substantive AGM motions are due February 16th, so coming right up here. And AGM motions will be distributed March 19th. So those are just a couple of dates I wanted to highlight. Motion submission form and guide are available on the portal. And then one thing from those long emails that we get with all those wonderful resources, I always like to highlight something. BCSTA does have scholarships available. There's 3 awards of $750 each to be distributed, and the applications are open until February 29th. So if you can go in your email and open those up and maybe take a look at who we could forward those to potentially get some good applicants, get some students some money. And that's everything from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reed. Are there any questions from trustees? All right, seeing none, We're moving on to public participation. So this is comments or questions concerning the agenda. The public board meeting is the formally designated means of transacting board business. 2 public participation periods are provided as a means for ensuring that community members who are present in the audience have an opportunity to provide comments and or ask questions about business or issues pertaining to the board agenda. There are 2 public participation periods with an allotted time of 15 minutes each. Speakers will be limited to a total of 2 minutes each. Speakers must state their full name, relation to the district, and which agenda item they're speaking to. Matters currently under negotiation or litigation or related to personnel or student circumstances, including names or specific classrooms, are not permitted and will not be addressed in the public participation periods. When requests or questions are directed to the board, actions or answers to many questions may be deferred pending board consideration. The chair may indicate another means of response if a question cannot be answered at the time. And community members who have other comments or questions are encouraged to contact trustees or the superintendent via email, board@sd33.bc.ca. Speakers must be timely and courteous. The chair will advise speakers if they consider the content to be discourteous or not aligned with the agenda. All that being said, please come up to the mic if you wish to speak.
Hi, my name is Dr. Daryl Ferguson. I'm a grandparent in the community, and I'm here to express a question and a comment. I'd like to refer to a code of conduct that was on the trustee report, specifically by several trustees, including the chair. And I'd like to refer to that because I'm concerned about the rewriting of the code, or what kind of process is going on with the changing of this code. I just want to refer to it. Public confidence in and respect for the board is enhanced by adopting and adhering to a trustee code of conduct, particularly integrity and dignity of office. Trustees will carry out.
Sorry, trustee. Sorry, Mr. Ferguson.
Dr. Ferguson, please. Thank you.
The item you're talking about is not on our agenda.
Yes, it is. Trustee reports, item number 2.3, information item 2.3.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it was in your own report, Chair, that you had a meeting, and it was in another trustee. I just want to refer back to this because there are several incidents that I've experienced that I believe violate the code of conduct, and it's a serious matter, and I will not name the 2 trustees, but they're in this room, obviously. Trustees will carry out their duties faithfully, diligently, and in a manner that will inspire public confidence in the ability and integrity of the board. 2, trustees will conduct themselves in an appropriate, professional, and respectful manner when carrying out their duties. And under civil behavior and decorum, trustees will act with decorum and be respectful of other trustees, staff, students, partner groups, and the public at all times. Trustees will not make remarks that disparage other members of the board, employees of the district, or recognized partner groups. I've had an experience in this very room, the superintendent can verify it, where one trustee in this room swore at me in a foul manner that I won't acceptable, and I'm going to keep talking. And the word begins with F.
just have a question about the amended budget before we get into it, possibly a response afterwards. My question is, the purpose of voting on even just the first, second, and third reading, you're voting on the total operating budget or the final number, the big number. We're not talking about individual line items where that's operational, correct?
That is correct.
So with that information,
What's your point of order?
My point of order is that anything in the budget, the public are able to speak to.
Oops, sorry, I accidentally pressed my button. You need to press your.
Anything that is contained within the budget is open for comment or question by public, or it's not just completely operational. He can
Yes.
speak to whatever
That
he
is
wishes
fine.
to speak to.
He was clarifying something. You don't need to interrupt. That's not a point of order. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
there. Thank you. So my question though is, I'll provide some context. There are things in that amended budget line items, individual line items that myself, my team at the Chilliwack Teachers Association, and my colleagues around the district vehemently oppose. And I think I've said that in private and I've said it through email. I know it was articulated at the last board meeting, and I think we've had some really important discussions around those items. However, my concern is I don't believe that there should be, and this is my opinion, I don't believe that individual board members should be voting against the proposed amended budget based on that one item. I think that there's some important investments that are going to be made that I think we need to proceed with. And so I want the individual board to see this from a more holistic manner than just the individual items. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted, before you sit down, I'm just going to respond to you. So, I know I know what you're going to be what you're talking about specifically because we've discussed it. So I am going to ask a question when the budget is presented to clarify that as well. So just, we are aware of that when the board passes the budget, we're passing the big buckets, but I also want to speak to some of the concerns. So that I'm hoping, if you still have questions, there's another public participation period at the end. Sorry, push your buttons.
Cindy Carpenter, mother of the district. First, I'd like it to be known that I did email this question prior, February 11th, and it was to the district secretary treasurer. I asked questions in accordance with Freedom of Information proceedings and as a formal request. My email remains without a reply, which brings me to now. In an article by the Chilliwack Progress from June 28th, 2023, the SD333 Director of Transportation and Facilities, and Al Van Tassel, he estimated the cost of adding feminine hygiene product dispensers to male washrooms only at around $15,000 to $17,000. Have these dispensers been installed? Which schools? Which washrooms? What was the total cost? Does the funding come out of the services and supplies category, or where does that come from? Did the district investigate using smaller dispensers to save a modest amount of money as stated by Mr. Van Tassel? Those are my questions.
Sorry, staff, does anyone want to, obviously the board, just so you know, for a procedure, like the board will eventually get a report on this. The policy was really new, so we don't have the answers to that right now. I don't know, and also if staff hasn't created a report, they wouldn't either. So, but if there is any information that anyone can provide to the person, other than that, you'll have to wait for a report.
Would the installation cost be done before December 31st? Wouldn't you have that information if it was done before then? So is that something that would be after?
I can answer that. Sorry, answer to your question, I think your whole notion was the overall cost of the product around the dispensers, and I know I provided this information to somebody else in the public, was approximately $80,000. And then, yeah, and the next thing would be is that we have to really dissect all of the cost. And then the notion always is to bring it to the Board of Education first. Once that is completed, that will be public information.
Sorry, Superintendent, to clarify, was that the cost for all the dispensers or just the ones in the men's wash?
For all the dispensers.
That's what I thought.
And I just want to respond to the question because I received two very similar questions on FOI requests. We will respond to those. Sometimes it just takes a couple of days. I think, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think we have a couple of weeks to do so under the 30 days. There we go, under the Act. So, we got it on Sunday night, right? Yeah. So it's only been 48 hours.
I thought maybe you were under the same rules as the trustees for usually it's like a 24 to 48 hour. So, okay.
No, and the superintendent's point still stands, which is it has to be an existing record, and at this point we don't actually have a report that tells us the total cost because it only just completed and because it's basically all over the place in a bunch of different vendors and a bunch of different records, and it has to be compiled. So we will bring it to the board in the future.
Go ahead, press your right hand.
Hi, Marina Garman. I am a mom here within District 33. I have two questions. I'll start with this first one here. It's regarding trustee salaries. I believe that falls under budget. I'm wondering what they are annually. I believe this is online, but I'm not sure where to find it. And I'm wondering, so what the salaries are yearly and how these salaries are determined, when is the next increase, and what the trustee obligations are to their schools and students. And that's it for that question. My second question, if I can ask that, is regarding meals and or treats provided for district and staff trustees, such as on January 24th, 2024, during a special early Valentine's Day gathering as posted on Facebook. Is there a separate budget for these meals and treats? And if so, how much is the budget and where do the funds to fill these budgets come from?
Give me 1 second. I'm just looking up the trustee remuneration. We have a policy, so I just have to actually find it. Hold on. Well, yeah, I can go this way. Hold on 1 second. But I can tell you about the food for, say, the board. We get fed on board days because we actually get here at 3 o'clock and have to sometimes be here well into the evening. That comes out of the governance budget. So there's a line item in our budget that's governance, which includes our salary plus things like that and our per diem and stuff like that. We make around around $20,000 a year, but that's not the exact amount.
25. It depends on the position.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you got it?
I'm getting it. Sorry, I was going very slow. Oh, you've got it.
It's
Sorry.
the email, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. So a regular trustee makes $24,847 a year. The vice chair makes $26,314 a year, and the chair makes $28,128 a year. That's approximately the average for our region, although notably Abbotsford makes about $10,000 more than we do. The last time it was addressed was, I believe, in 2018 or 2019. And that was a special committee was struck, so it wasn't trustees that gave ourselves our salary. A special committee policy was struck, and they made a recommendation to the board. Part of the policy is that we get an annual increase in July that's tied to CPI, so the Consumer Price Index. So some years it's like almost nothing. Some years, like because of inflation, it was higher last year.
Okay, are you able to elaborate on the second part of that question?
Well, what our obligation is to
Yes,
our,
for the
so
for the school for each trustee's school that they specifically belong to and the students in that school.
so that's not exactly how it works. So there's liaison duties assigned. Pardon?
Sorry, this is a little outside of our agenda. I think there's
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, I guess it was slightly to the, yes, thank you. I got distracted because it technically was part of the budget. So basically trustee liaison is just a way to divvy up the work amongst trustees. So that allows people not to all get invited to 30 Christmas concerts, for example. There's no specific duties, basically.
Policy 168.
Yeah. You could look up policy 168 though.
So then if I needed to follow up more in detail, I'd have to email one of the trustees or yourself, because I do have a follow-up to that. Okay, thank you for your time.
Linda Armoni, and I live here. And I remember the June meeting when that went on, and if I remembered correctly, with the boys, the menstrual products in the boys' washroom was $30,000 plus $5,000 per product per year was budgeted at that time. It was the June meeting. And yeah, if it's 80,000 that's for all the dispensers. So I guess you're putting them in elementary schools now, because I've been hearing very much that they're going into elementary schools now.
So that was for all of the dispensers and all of the washrooms and all of the schools. All of them, like the high school ones, the middle school ones,
When we budgeted the meeting, it was when they did the budget meeting. So is the $30,000 just for the boys' washrooms then that they were talking about when we talked about it, not 80? Because in the June meeting it was $30,000 plus $5,000 for materials.
I don't recall what the figure was at that time. Can you press your button, Mr.?
30 to 35,000.
When we did start on it, the initiative did change as we experienced the ministry's direction and our policy. So there was some more work done. When we originally looked at it, I mean, we have some dispensers in place. Those dispensers were paid dispensers. We had to make changes to the equipment so that they could be free dispensers. So as we're always trying to stretch dollars, those were maintained, but the mechanism was changed, so we didn't have to buy those completely. And then the other things that happened during that is the initiative did change, right? So that we were adding more equipment. The other thing that happened is we got caught up in the government asking all of the other districts, all of the other government entities. So for an example, criminal justice is also doing the same thing. So we saw providers increasing prices. We saw delays in able to purchase those. So many of us were caught in that supply and demand. So prices did go up
So
more
it
than we were
doubled,
expecting.
basically. Because it went from 40 to 80.
But that would be partially through the initiative piece too. So an increase in that. So I wanted to respond a bit just to say, yeah, we are trying to do that. We did save as many operating systems as we could, made upgrades so that they met the policy, and then we added new machines into the sites. And the other piece is we did experience price increases, but not double. But these are estimates. As we're looking at it, they are estimates that we're talking about.
So it wasn't just 40 for boys' washrooms. then.
I don't have,
So-
yeah.
Sorry, that, yeah, no, we never said it was 40 for
Yeah,
just
and I-
boys' washrooms, yeah.
We were working.
$1,000 altogether, 5,000 for product.
Now you're talking, you're not on mic, but understood your question. I don't believe the $40,000 was ever a figure I heard. I remember 16, so I don't know, but I'd have to go back and watch the meeting. Are there any other questions?
Hello, my name is Darren Ollinger. Regarding the budget, I want to address mental health issues and the jurisdiction of the district as far as, well, it's a federal thing now too, with the Conservatives, about providing gender blocking treatment to children in the schools.
Sorry, that's never been a thing. Schools don't provide medical care for students. That's not a thing, no. No, that's not a thing. Okay, I lost track of time, so I will let you go, but then we're gonna have to stop and wait till the next meeting. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Judy, and my question is with regards to the budget. I'm just wondering if there's anything in the budget to help our non-verbal students be able to communicate with the people that they work with. I've worked with kids who are nonverbal, who, without a way to communicate, i.e. a computer with pick symbols, continue to have meltdowns. Wondering if that is something that the school board provides for students who are nonverbal.
A superintendent or
Mr.
secretary?
Jordan?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I can answer simply yes, we do provide that through our district student services department. We have SLAs, SLPs, and specialists who work with the school teams, and sometimes we bring in external services like Popard to help with that as well.
How would a parent, come to, they would be given a computer for the year to be able to use to communicate? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so usually it is an iPad that's provided, and so for a parent, if they're looking to have that conversation with the school team, they connect with the school principal and the student services team at the school. They connect with the district and they put the plan together for the student. Okay. Okay. Well, then reach out. Please do reach out. Okay.
Okay, so, sorry, we did go over time a little bit. I lost track of time. I wasn't watching the clock. So there is another public participation at the end of the meeting. We're now moving on to action items. 4.1 is 2023-2024 amended annual budget, second and third reading and adoption. Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, we presented the budget for first reading at the last board meeting. It does need to be approved by February 29, 2024 in order to be submitted to the province in time. And I guess I would just entertain any further questions from the board. We're asking for second and third reading this evening.
Okay, I have a question which I did refer to earlier. So I know that because when this was presented, you did talk about a lot of initiatives you're thinking of, and one of the line items that caused concern at the Budget Advisory Committee and in the public meeting was the potential of moving the Indigenous room at CSS. And I know that a consultation process is happening, and I know that we're going to hear from that again. But meanwhile, we're passing the budget before we've had that full discussion and before we've heard the results of that. So I just want someone to speak to the fact that we're not automatically approving that change by passing the budget.
Maybe I should speak first. I'd actually like to reference a comment by Mr. Clark in the audience there. Where is he? I see you back there. Because as I understand governance and my reading of the School Act of British Columbia is that the board approves the budget as a whole, not as individual line items. So, I can speak to the budget, and I know the superintendent can speak to the underlying actions within it.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. So one of the key governance responsibilities for the Board of Education is connection with partners and the community at large. Fundamentally really important on top of approving the strategic plan. It's really extremely important that when we have a decision that impacts the larger community as a whole, that the board is able to provide feedback to staff regarding any actions staff take as we connect and provide information by itself. So to confirm, if a decision is made that impacts the budget item you're talking about, the Indigenous Room Space and CSS, the board will be consulted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so essentially we can pass the budget confident that the numbers add up, that we support the overall vision, including many new initiatives that I'm personally very excited about, but that we can be confident we're still going to hear more about the item that has raised some concerns for the board and for members of the public, and that is not a done deal by passing the budget. Yeah. Right? Okay, thank you. Trustees, are there any questions before we move on to the motions? Trustee West.
Thank you. I do know the answer to this question, but for the purpose of the public, I just want to ask through the chair to Secretary Treasurer to confirm that all of the increase in school spending will be carried on throughout the years. It's not just a one-time thing. It is a ongoing investment.
So I recently learned that a board is not able to bind future boards by a decision. So with that in mind and being unable to predict the future, my answer kind of has to be, I can't assure you with 100% certainty. But in light of the fact that the district sort of has continuing operations and we do not, radically change the number of staff at each school, we hadn't changed school budgets in, the ratios in 20 odd years, I think our intention is to hold those increases, yes.
And just to clarify, I think the new funding we got is ongoing funding. We applied for grants that are new to us, but they're ongoing. Like it's based on how we've done everything now. We should still have this funding next year.
Yeah, the grants that we received are based on our current way of operating. So yeah, we won't be changing that.
Trustee Moss.
I'm going to state that boards of education are obliged to pass a balanced budget, and in this case, it's an amended budget. However, I would argue that if there are items in an amended budget, that the board has the right to speak to those items. And, otherwise, we're just rubber stampers. And I didn't sign up to this to be a rubber stamper. I believe that it is our job to represent the community in the decisions that we make. And I am disappointed in a number of the items that are in this agenda. There are some good things, or in the budget, there are some good things, absolutely. But there are some things that I vehemently disagree with. And that's from my history in when we built Chilliwack Secondary and we hired consultants and we paid a high amount of money to those consultants to build that Indigenous room. So, so am I supposed to vote in favor of an amended budget that I vehemently disagree with?
Point of order, Chair.
Okay.
Yes, Trustees.
I believe this is an opportunity to address questions through the chair to staff. The motion's not on the table, so very important perspective for our colleague to be sharing, but not in order at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Swanky. I agree with your point of order. Point taken. You can come back to your points when we're actually debating the budget. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions before we, oh, I actually have a question, sorry, to the Secretary Treasurer. Do we need a motion to do second and third reading in one night before we do the thing, or can we just do it as all one motion? As long as it's not all three in one from, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So if someone, yes.
Through the chair to staff, so part of the amended budget also upholds our obligations under 611, the 3.5% contingency reserve. I'm wondering if you can clarify, is that in an unrestricted fund, a restricted fund? Like, where does that sit? And is there any direction from the board once kind of the budget is passed with that noted as being in reserve?
It currently sits just in the accumulated surplus, which we'd have to say is unrestricted, yeah. I'm not quite sure I understand the second part, which is what happens after the budget's passed.
If I think it's to the extent we've had motions in the past where we move surpluses or funds into a restricted fund, and I just wondered if there was any rationale to take one approach versus the other, given at this point it's not earmarked for any specific purpose. Leaving it as an unrestricted reserve, if I'm understanding correctly, would be the advice of the Secretary Treasurer at this time.
Yeah, so under accounting standards, in order to restrict a fund, you've got to have specific justifications for it, and it does actually have to happen as a board resolution. I don't see either of those being the case, and since 611 talks specifically about unrestricted, and that's what this is, I think you leave it the way it is.
Okay, is there a trustee who would like to make the motion? Trustee Bond?
I will move that the Board of Education approve the second and third reading and adoption of the 2023-2024 amended annual budget bylaw per below.
Is there a seconder?
Oh,
Seconded by Trustee Reed. Trustee Bondar, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just want to thank the Secretary Treasurer and Assistant Secretary Treasurer for this awesome work. Thank you. I'm not a numbers person and I have great trust and faith in you people. Thank you.
Okay, would any other trustees like to speak to the budget? Trustee Moss, did you want to speak to the budget?
I believe I've done so already. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to point out that I do agree with Trustee Moss in that we can speak to line items when we're talking about whether or not we want to approve a budget. Like, we can do that. Especially, you can speak when you feel like an item that was presented is not in alignment with our strategic plan, for example. That's really important. I know that there was a budget, I believe in my first year on the board, that included like a cut to EAs, and I was like, I can't vote for this budget if that's going to be in there because it's so against like what I believe. So you can do that. What I, in my question, was clarifying is that really, though, even if we are speaking to suggestions that have been made, what we're actually passing is the big numbers. We're passing, there's this much in facilities, there's this much in staffing, there's this much in whatever. And the one item that has been controversial and that a lot of us have expressed concerns about is still in a consultation process. So I was clarifying because I know that I personally would have had a hard time passing second and third reading tonight had I not been assured that that process is still ongoing and that we're going to actually hear the results of the consultation. So that is why I am now, because I know that that is the rule, that I'm not obligating. I'm not saying by passing this I agree to every single thing and I don't want to hear anything more. We are still going to hear stuff. I am confident to pass the budget as presented tonight.
Yeah, so I will speak in favor of the motion, but I do want to express also that I am looking forward to the consultation process, and I'm not confident in the results thus far, and a lot of concerns have been communicated to me. They are very important concerns. The safety of those students and staff in Chilliwack Senior have to be the absolute priority, and I trust that we will take that all into consideration when we move forward with the process. I do feel confident passing the budget, just knowing that the process is still ongoing. Communities still need to be consulted. These are things that still need to be done in a very meaningful way from the ground up. And I don't think people feel heard at the moment. So I want to hear what they have to say instead of putting my opinion necessarily on it. But I would speak in favor of the budget.
Trustee Weston.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with the things that have been expressed today. I just want to mention that these line items we're discussing actually aren't on this particular budget that we're discussing. The presentation that was given are the plans for the following coming year and the things we plan to do and how they align with our strategic plan. And what we're passing today, as has been discussed, is buckets of money, not specifically how we're going to spend them. So it's really great to have seen that presentation and what our future plans are going to look like. But it is not necessarily tied with what we're passing today. So I just want to make that clear, as has been expressed multiple times. But I also agree that what we're passing today is general and not specific, and I just want to continue to make that as clear as possible. I'm very happy with what's here and seeing how it's balanced and all the work that's been done. So I'm happy to pass both readings tonight.
Just before, oh, actually, you didn't speak during the, yeah, go ahead, Trustee Moss.
Thank you. Well, this has been a very fulsome conversation with lots of explanations of why the board needs to pass the amended budget. And, you know, we actually are politicians, and sometimes politicians have to deliver a message by the way they vote. And I'm quite confident that this board is actually going to pass this budget. However, I am going to oppose it because of the issues that I have outlined, and that's the way it goes in the world of politics. So,
Trustee Swicky.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just take a moment to reflect on the comments of my colleague. I think first I just speak in favor of passing both readings of the amended budget. As already been outlined, this fulfills our obligation to the ministry with regards to a balanced budget that upholds collective agreements, other legal and fiduciary duties. I also would highlight the fact that there's a lot of work that had gone into this point in terms of allocating some of the surplus. So I think where I'm challenged, it's already been mentioned, is the piece about where we reconcile a document that is about managing resources and dollars and cents with an organization that is intended and ought to at all times be valuing people, championing reconciliation, and the tension that exists between structures that aren't necessarily built with people in mind or reconciliation as a guiding principle. So my hope, my confidence is in staff to take up that work in good faith. As I said, I will vote in favor. The piece, I want to set that aside and just go back to the initial presentation from last meeting, because I think we are doing a disservice by not also acknowledging that there's a huge amount of work that has brought great investment to the district through the Classroom Enhancement Fund. And from that, there's a lot of strategic investments that are coming to the district and supporting students as a result of it. So if you haven't watched it, I know members of the board have, but for anyone watching, please go watch the last budget presentation. There's an exceptional presentation from staff outlining what those investments are. And I think it's important we look at the document as a whole, but we also highlight not just where there's a concern about an individual budget line item through a political lens, but also look at where there is a lot of benefit. And it's in balancing the benefit with some of those challenges where we have the opportunity to serve well as governors. And so if I may be blunt, Chair, I'm discouraged by the notion that a member sitting here acknowledging their political position, when in fact we're supposed to be sitting here as governors working collectively to pass a budget that, in my view, very well serves this district and this community.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other comments. So with that being said, all those in favor that the Board of Education approve the second and third reading and adoption of the 2023-2024 amended annual budget bylaw as presented. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, trustees. Okay, we're on to 4.2, appointment of financial auditor. Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, I guess I take this one too. So every 5 years, the district goes out. Oh, did you want to?
No, you go ahead, I'll speak up.
Yeah, there we go. I'll just outline the process and then, okay. Every 5 years, the district goes out for solicitation to invite audit firms to provide audit services to the district. We did that in the fall this year. Put together an RFP, put it on a public bid on the BC Bid website, and received one reply, one bid, one eligible bid. And I guess I'll put it to you at this point.
Right, so I think this is the first time in the history of going out for a contract with an audit company. We've never had more. We've never had multiple bids, and so we have a fantastic working relationship with KPMG, and I think it's wonderful news that they're going to be our auditors. Again, for I think we've signed 5 years with them, and we enjoy a good working relationship with them. It is disappointing that there were no other applications for this position. And I think, you know, in the business world, this speaks to no competition, and no competition can mean, you know, it's kind of a monopoly kind of situation where competition would benefit us. So anyways, I would just like to publicly encourage any, especially of our local firms too, in the next 5 years, to please also apply to be our auditors. So that being said, we have a recommendation on the table here that the Board of Education appoint KPMG as auditor for a 5-year term effective with the 2023-24 fiscal year.
And would you consider yourself the mover of that motion as saying that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, push your button, and seconded by Trustee West. Trustee Moss, I take it you basically said why you're in favor. You don't need to say anything else. Okay, does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Trustee West.
So just recognizing that we did not have much competition, I've noticed that it's a 5-year term. If perhaps someone could speak to if that's the standard 5-year term, or if perhaps a shorter term would be more effective to allow competition sooner. If someone could speak to that.
I think it's just it's cost effective to go 5 years because we have a assurance of audit fees. Unfortunately, with this one, our audit fees actually jumped up, which seems to be in the market right now. And so having that 5 years kind of helps us with, you know, cost predictions. So and just the familiarity with the firm. Yeah.
Trustee Bondar and then Trustee Swanky.
Just a quick question regarding the request for proposals. Do we put out any kind of a notice that we're doing that, or is it just on our website?
Oh, no.
It just goes out, and who responds.
Yeah, we use a government BC Bid site, and so you know, firms looking for business would know that government entities would solicit on that site, so they should have somebody watching for their. Yeah.
Trustee Swanky.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the question about fees being addressed. That was my first question. The second one, I just wondered through the chair to staff, are we aware of other districts having the same challenge where there's limited respondents when an RFP goes out?
I've talked to a couple other districts and they seem to be in the same boat.
Trustee Swanky.
Thank you. And speaking directly to the motion, I will be plain spoken. I had certain misgivings about this not coming through the audit committee, recognizing that there was limited considerations for the committee, that it doesn't have external representation at this time. I'm comfortable both with the process that led it to this point and the recommendation before the floor, so I'll speak in favor of the recommendation.
All right, not seeing any further comments. All those in favor that the Board of Education appoint KPMG LLP as auditor for a 5-year term effective with the 2023-2024 fiscal year. That's unanimous, so motion carries. Thank you very much, trustees. Okay, we're moving on to meeting summaries, which are in the package. Now we're moving on to number 6, which is public participation, comments or questions concerning the agenda. Same rules as before.
Thank you, trustees, and I want to applaud you on approving the amended budget. I think it's really important, and there's been a lot of consultation, a lot of discussions, a lot of emails back and forth about what this means. And I'd be remiss as Reed Clark, president of the CTA, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit and share my opinions, my humble opinions about what this amended budget means to teachers, my colleagues around the district, because I think what we're going to see with the amended budget is improvements in areas that we have identified. I have identified for as long as I've been in the CTA office have identified as a problem. So when we talk about the Classroom Enhancement Fund and the plans on what to do with that extra money from the amended budget, when we talk about sort of looking at the strategic plan and the areas that we need to address in terms of social emotional learning, staff burnout. I've been a released officer 5 years as vice president, 1 year as president. It's the number one thing that I deal with every single day as a released officer of the Chilliwack Teachers Association is staff burnout. This is a huge issue, not just in Chilliwack, but around the province. And I think we can be that exemplar in the province about how we can support staff. This amended budget goes a long ways to doing it. It's not, we need to do more. We're approaching the next round of bargaining, and I hope that these issues get addressed there in terms of recruitment and retention. But I think that we have an opportunity here to use this surplus to our advantage to show how we can be the exemplar in the province. So I applaud you. We do have some work to do in terms of the consulting, in terms of the Indigenous Enhancement Room, and ensuring that proper consultation is done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Reed, and we really appreciate the partnership with the CTA, as always.
Hello, my name is Darren Ollinger. Question about line items in the budget. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I was wondering if under the scope of mental health, there's a amount budgeted for counseling, specifically for the policy handling social media abuse and the use of AI for deepfake presentations that are perniciously harmful to vulnerable and victims in the school system. Is there budget for the counseling?
There's definitely a counseling budget. Yes, we actually, there's all of the schools, all of the high schools and middle schools have counselors, and the elementary schools currently have.
Is there anything specific in the policy about social media abuse?
I'm
if
not
you could
sure.
direct me where I
That
can
wouldn't
find
be a
in the
line item,
policy.
I don't believe. Superintendent, is there anything about social media in the specific to counseling?
Hello, my name's Linda Diarmoni. I'm live here. So I understand that I understand that the trustees are changing the trustee code of conduct. And so if they're changing it, is it going to come back at the next meeting with the new code of conduct for trustees?
Yeah, so the code of conduct, we're looking at it to make sure that it's what we all agree that we want to have as our code of conduct. The code of conduct is a internal, it's posted publicly what the code of conduct is, but matters of trustee discipline are done by the board. It's the board policing itself. So But yes, the code of conduct, the current one is posted online, and if anytime we change a policy, it comes back to the public meeting and we debate it in public and pass it, and then it goes back on the public website. Yeah.
Okay. So I know that several trustees have put out memes that have been, and put out videos that have been disturbing to many members of the public. And I do believe that goes against the code of conduct. So I was wondering if those things are going to be addressed.
All matters of trustee discipline occur in camera, so you would not be made aware of that unless the board chose to release a public statement.
Unless they decided to censure them.
Yes, this is for questions concerning the agenda, so yes, I gave you the answer about our code of conduct. Sorry, I just want to say, post-infectious cough. I've been like coughing for 3 weeks. I'm not contagious anymore, I swear. Sorry about all the coughing.
Hi, I was just wondering if there was anything in the budget to address the impoverished wages that EAs are making.
So QP salaries are set provincially. Like that's not really our district doesn't have the ability to determine what those salaries are. Just for your own interest. So obviously, trust boards of education could advocate to the provincial government for an increased wage, for example. But those are collectively bargained. So that's not like, and that part is done provincially.
I'm just wondering, I'm hearing about all these people getting cost of living wage advances, and EAs are working 2 to 3 jobs to be able to have a cost of living. So I'm just curious, you know, we were talking about retention and keeping people and that kind of
Secretary
stuff.
Treasurer?
Just curious how you're going to keep EAs who work extremely hard when their wage is very tiny.
No, it is a concern. Like I said, that's collective bargaining, and the board, our board, doesn't have the ability to set those wages. But Secretary Treasurer?
Yeah, so as the board chair has indicated, EA salaries and in fact teacher salaries are set provincially. So we actually get told what the schedule will look like. So, you know, to your question of can that be increased, that would be a provincial decision. To your question of have there been cost of living adjustments, yes, there have. And again, that was a provincial decision. So we were told what that increase would be last year.
There was a meeting that I saw, and it was about some policy about EAs working with students that they work with in the school, and how it was going to be on a case-by-case basis on a
Sorry, that's not anything on the agenda. Sorry.
I just have a question. I'm Marina Garman again. How do we get something on the agenda if we want to discuss it?
The public doesn't have the ability to set agenda items. You can write to the board and ask us if we want to put something on the agenda, but no, there's no opportunity for the
So
public
just
to
email
do.
the board and ask?
Yeah, so this is not a public, just to clarify, board meetings are not, public forums. That's not what they are. They're a corporate board meeting that the public is allowed to watch. So it's not a situation where the public gets to tell the board how to do our business. The board sets our business, the board does our business. You're allowed, all of you, anybody is allowed to come and watch our meeting and watch us conduct our business, but it's not the public directing us to do our work. We do our work and people can watch it.
Cindy Carpenter again, with the dispensers. Also, I'm wondering if it's in the budget, if you have a number of upkeep per year for these dispensers.
That would be the same answer that you got before. We haven't got a report on that yet.
Yeah, the 80,000, so I didn't know if maybe you had another number as well.
We've got all the information that the board has at this point.
Okay.
Judy again. I'm just curious. The school board is meant to represent the Chilliwack community, is it not?
Yes.
If questions don't get answered via email, via phone calls, via all kinds of things, how do we get our voices heard?
So I'll just briefly say, you know, emails do get answered. Sometimes people don't like the answers they get, but emails do get answered. And if you don't like the way that the board is performing, then there's an election every 4 years.
But the answers are quite dismissive. I have nothing further to say. It seems if we disagree, there is no dialogue. It's just we get shut off. And so that's my concern is it's happened here tonight. It's happened with emails. It's happened at every meeting. If there is a disagreement with your ideology, it seems we aren't given a voice.
This is not on the agenda, so let's have a seat. Thank you.
My name's Jim, taxpayer. Just want to
So
corroborate.
I would like to know your last name, please.
I
I read them out at the beginning. Oh, I guess I actually didn't notice, Judy. Sorry. Are you Judy Sluice or Judy Chalmer? Okay, so that's the end of the public participation period. We're moving on to superintendent's update.
Thank you, Chair. Just 1 second. Thank you. So I have 2 updates today. They're both great updates. The first one is from Quaker Secondary. It's the UFV University of Fraser Valley.
Please, point of personal privilege. I actually can't hear over the conversation. I'm hard of hearing.
Okay, sorry. If members of the audience can be quiet while the board meeting is in progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So as I said, the first update is from Quaker Secondary School, the University of Fraser Valley Trade Sampler Program update. Really quickly, this was provided by Mr. James Brown. He's been an EA, education assistant at that place for such a long time. He's championed every single cohort that has gone to University of Fraser Valley from Quaker Secondary. And this program was created by Principal Chuck Lawson, who's now at GW Graham Secondary. Program has been a success due to Mr. Brown's tireless championing of the program. So thank you, James, for your dedication and commitment to the students at Quaker Secondary and also giving kids the opportunity. Really quickly, what you see there is it's a trade sample program. It's approximately 12 weeks. Students gets a hands-on approach to experience the following: safety of tools, forklift training, carpentry, blueprint reading, drafting, electrical, plumbing, pipe fitting, automotive, and welding. The program gives students certificates for first aid, forklift training, and also WHMIS, which stands for Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. And this year, students also have an opportunity to be able to engage in a drafting program called AutoCAD, which is really beneficial. This same program now does benefit students also at GW Graham Secondary, but I think the value is a partnership that really enables students life learning skills as they graduate and they leave And so those are that's one of the updates I want to bring. The second update I think is timely, and I know this has been a conversation topic around parents' rights, inclusion, and gender identity. This past January, I actually had Harrison Company make a presentation, that's a legal law firm, provided the Chilliwack Board of Education with information about parent rights, inclusion, and gender identity. This past week, the same information was presented to all partners, meeting where all board chairs, all superintendents, and secretary treasurers from all 60 school districts were in attendance. Included below is a summary of the information. So this information actually will be part of my report. You can access this tomorrow morning off the link of a public website for those that are interested in this. I'd like to take a bit of time to read this, and I'm going to read it very slowly. So the School Act articulates the purpose of the British Columbia school system. It is to enable all learners to develop their individual potential and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to contribute to a healthy, democratic, and pluralistic society and a prosperous and sustainable economy. To achieve this purpose, the school system must strive to ensure that difference among learners do not impede their participation in school, their mastery of learning outcomes, or their ability to become contributing members of society. The school system is expected to promote values expressed in the Constitution Act, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Official Languages Act, the Multiculturalism Act, the BC Human Rights Code, the Employment Equity Act, and the School Act, respecting the rights of all individuals in accordance with the law. So key pieces in here would be students have the rights to an educational program, and the notion of equitable access to learning opportunities for achievement in pursuit of excellence. The notion of the charter requires that all students, regardless of membership in a protected group, have meaningful access to educational programs in our public school system. This is nothing new for the Board of Education. The Human Rights Code prohibits discrimination on the grounds set out in the code in the provisions of services customarily available to the public, including schools. So the code by itself, Section 8, protects the rights of students, including those with diverse abilities and exceptional needs, and I think we want to highlight that particular piece as we had a discussion. These are the protected grounds, and again, this is not new information for members of the Board of Education and the public, but this is something to be able to, a visual graphic talks about the protected grounds. Just as a summary, back in January of 2016, a special report was published identifying sexual and gender minority youth as particularly marginalized, vulnerable, and in need of support in our school system. In 2016, the Human Rights Code was amended to include gender identity and expression as protected grounds. And then in 2016, the Ministry of Education and Child Care directed all school boards to expressively reference sexual identity, orientation, and gender identity in the district schools code of conduct. That was work that we all did collectively together. Summary information, and this is not really new. SOGI 123 was created by the ARC Foundation in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Child Care, BCTF, BC school districts, and other community partners. And realistically talks about the whole notion of provides educational resources and supports for teachers to create inclusive classrooms in schools, and those are the three areas, which is policies and procedures, inclusive environments, and teaching resources. So research collectively talks about the fact that discrimination and risky behaviors do impact students collectively across schools. The whole notion of that student, this is reduced when schools are able to create a sense of belonging and in all classrooms, in all schools collectively, and also when schools engage in teachable diversity, promoting, supporting, and championing diversity and respecting differences. I also want to add, for those who may not know, Dr. Michael Fullan is a leading Canadian research researcher, and he talks about the fact that there is a correlation between belonging and wellness and academic achievement, and that I think is collectively is a notion across multiple research articles. And so it talks about the fact that SOGI 123 resources help schools to implement and support these methods, and then also help create safe, caring, inclusive learning environments. The next slide is particularly important. So understanding, so this is about understanding and respect for diversity, which is embedded in the basic curriculum. So I want to be able to introduce a Supreme Court, a Court of Canada judgment as part of the update. This references back to Chamberlain versus Surrey School District, number 36 from 2002. This was a case in which the Supreme Court of Canada held that a local school board could not impose its religious values by refusing to permit the use of books that sought to promote tolerance of same-sex relationship. So in the decision, in the Supreme Court of Canada, parents need not abandon their own commitments or their view that the practices of others are undesirable. But where the school curriculum requires that a broad array of family models be taught in the classroom, a secular school system cannot exclude certain lawful family models simply on the ground that one group of parents find them morally questionable. Parental views, however important, cannot override the imperative placed upon the British Columbia public schools to mirror the diversity of the community and teach tolerance and understanding of difference. The next slide talks about the fact that there are no parental rights to exempt students from discussions regarding gender identity and expressions. This is from the Ontario Court of Appeal in its decision in E.T. versus Hamilton Wentworth School District Board in 2017. So this is more around the appellant practiced the Greek Orthodox religion, had 2 children enrolled in an elementary school with the respondent school board. He had advised that school board that his religious beliefs required him to shelter his children from what his religious regard as false teachings. And so in the decisions from this, talks about the fact that, and so the decision from the court was exempting some students on a regular basis from classroom discussions, touching on diversity, inclusivity, and acceptance within the public school program designed to promote precisely those principles would run a serious risk of endorsing the non-acceptance of students of other family backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender expressions, and gender identities. That principle would be contradicted and undermined if every time certain students' families and or identities were discussed as being healthy and acceptable, they saw some members of their class leave so that they would not be exposed to such statements of honor and respect. And the next one is cognitive dissonance in part of learning. And again, this is from the Chamberlain versus Surrey School District number 36. The argument based on cognitive dissonance essentially asserts that children should not be exposed to information and ideas with which their parents disagree. The Supreme Court goes on to say, the number of different family models in the community means that some children will inevitably come from families of which certain parents disapprove. Giving these children an opportunity to discuss their family models may expose other children to some cognitive dissonance. But such dissonance is neither avoidable nor noxious. Children encountered every day in public school system as members of a diverse student body. The cognitive dissonance that results from such encounters is simply a part of living in a diverse society. It is also a part of growing up. Through such experiences, children come to realize that not all of their values are shared by others in the school community. And then the last 3 slides are basic principles. So under the Human Rights Code and Charter Rights, boards must provide meaningful access to programs for all students, including students with diverse gender identities and expressions. Students must feel welcome and included in school, regardless of the gender identity or expressions, and schools must respect choice of pronouns and preferred names. Where students do not want parents to know, we as a school district will work really hard Determine whether with appropriate supports and disclosure to parents is possible. And if communication with parents would compromise health and welfare of the students, privacy will be respected, and we would have to work with our agencies, our community agencies, to make sure that the child is safe. Forcing a child to choose between suppressing their identity or compromising their safety or welfare is not consistent with the duty to accommodate or the value of inclusion in a public school system. So in summary, every adult in our K-12 system carries the responsibility to proactively create safe and caring, inclusive learning environments for all students and support experiences of safety, dignity, and respect. It's also important that every adult in the K-12 system feels that their own safety and well-being is supported at their school or workplace. I'm going to finish with this quotation from the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu. We exist in a bundle of life. We say a person is a person through other people. It is not, I think, therefore I am, but I'm human because I belong, I participate, and I share. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. I've had the opportunity to see this. Oh, can you push your button? I've had the opportunity to see that presentation twice now. The one time when it was just for our district, and then on Friday at the partners meeting, and it was very powerful. You gave us a summary of the presentation, but yeah, it would be great if somehow that was available on.
Yeah, it would be outside.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, and this, the next Board of Education meeting is March 12th, 2024 at 5:30. This meeting is adjourned.